Yeah, we had the original product idea about 5 years ago. So the founder of Gemmy Industries was having back pain, and I would go into his office and he and I are talking. He's literally standing at his desk with a cardboard box on top, his laptop up on top. And I said, "What are you doing?" He goes, "Oh, I've got this sciatic nerve pain, and every time I stand up, I just feel better. So I'm just gonna stand up." I talked to my doctor and he said, "Well, if you feel better, stand up." So we started looking online, and our assistant at the time, Rosemary, was Googling online looking for a sit-stand desk. And so we started ordering them, and they would show up 6 or 8 weeks later in these crazy big boxes, and Dan and I would try to build them. It was the most painful process ever. And at one point, Dan goes, "I've got an idea for a product."
This episode is brought to you by our friends at Hello Alfred. Alfred marries powerful technology with excellent service to keep your home running smoothly. If you're tired of spending your weekends cleaning, doing laundry, and grocery shopping, you need to try this on-demand service. Dedicated, trusted Alfred home managers coordinate and take care of time-consuming tasks and chores so you can focus on what you love. Visit helloalfred.com/behind the brand. And now let's get into our episode.
Hi, I'm Jason McCann, CEO of Varidesk, and you're watching Behind the Brand with Bryan Elliott.
Hey, I'm Bryan Elliott. Welcome to another edition of Behind the Brand.
I'm so glad you're here. Welcome.
Thank you. I usually ask my guests, how'd you get this job?
It didn't just fall into my lap, but we sort of incubated a product inside of a company that I'm president of right across the street. And this small product turned into an amazing company called Varidesk.
Let's dig a little deeper into this cultural fit thing. So here we are in this sprawling, really cool, kind of state-of-the-art office. Super cool space, by the way.
Thank you very much.
And it seems like you have this very deliberate, open design. Talk about that and how that kind of folds into your company culture and your ideology.
Yeah, I think when we started on this journey, we had an initial product that gave us a sit-stand desk. And as the product grew and we decided we had to move into its own space, as we walked into the space, we realized we can reimagine workspace. So what are all the things that drive us crazy about a traditional office? When we walked in here, this was somebody else's office. Offices around all the outer windows, old cube farm in the center, dirty carpet on the floor, drop ceiling, negative energy. And to me, it's all about energy. So when you walk into a space, there's music in the lobby, there's scent machines that are pumping out smells. We built a coffee bar in the front, again, because we all love coffee, but two, it gave us a spot for people to meet. And the idea that openness creates communication and allows for collaboration, much faster dialogue about what's working and what's not within the organization. So we decided no walls, there's no doors. There's a few conference rooms with doors, but really even my office, there's no doors. So everything's open so that we can constantly encourage the idea of collaboration, communication within the organization. And then there's plenty of nooks like this one where people can get together and have a quick conversation. So you can have your workspace to get your work done. You have your community spaces where you can gather and grab a coffee. And then there's meeting nooks. So if you need to have a quick conversation or a meeting, there's those spaces as well, gathering spots throughout the company.
So what do you think your biggest overcome is, whether it's consumer perception or whatnot? And I know you have a B2B and a B2C model. And maybe if they're different, you can talk about both differently, but what do you think is the biggest overcome getting people to adopt the idea of a stand-up desk?
Well, I think 5 years ago, people hadn't heard of the idea of a standing desk, even though Ernest Hemingway's and you even see school desks from the 1920s and 30s were small standing drafting tables. So it's not a new idea. It was just a change in perception. And there was a researcher that we interviewed early on, because I did not know anything about the standing desk idea, except that Dan had pain and people seemed to feel better when they used the product. So as we started to talk to it, one of the researchers said it's pretty simple. In the last 50 years, all of us are sitting all the time and sedentary, and that's just our mindset. That's just how we think, and we don't even know what's going to happen to our bodies over time. So fast forward to today, 5 years later, that little shift in perception, now everybody's aware that sitting all day is bad for you. Sedentary is bad for you, just like certain foods are very bad for you. This pendulum has started to swing. So that first hurdle was just awareness.
Well, and I've heard it written about and talked about a lot that sitting is like the new smoking. You know, it has these negative health benefits, right? The sedentary lifestyle. So, I mean, from a health standpoint, it makes a lot of sense logically, but still, I'll bet, 90% of the workforce is still sitting down. From a brand perspective, how are you overcoming some of these obstacles of, changing hearts and minds?
Yeah, we know that we have to do a lot of the heavy lifting to create awareness for the opportunity to create an active workspace. By creating an active workspace, it's better ultimately for the employee and the employer. It's ultimately a win-win, and for our society as a whole. But part of it is being the tip of that spear by creating hopefully, and investing all this in it will ultimately be the big reward for us, because we're going to transform and make a positive impact on millions of people's lives all throughout the world. So yeah, we recognized early on that, we started to do Google ads, for instance, with our product, and we started to do print ads in magazines. We were the #1 selling item in SkyMall's history when we did an ad in SkyMall, and it was literally because we're always trapped on airplanes. We knew that, God, wouldn't it be great if we did an ad in SkyMall, because that might be our target customer. And we learned early on that just by creating those advertising touch points, that we're creating awareness and could start to, create more demand for our product.
How important is branding in all this? I mean, to me, it seems like you guys should be the Kleenex of desks, or the Band-Aids of, to become the noun or the verb. Like, I want to Varidesk this office. How are you guys working on that branding?
Yeah, I think we've made a tremendous amount of investment in the brand from an advertising perspective. And early on, I was fortunate enough to get some team members on that had expertise from a marketing perspective to help on how to build that brand. But ultimately, we know it's built by one fan at a time. So every relationship that we're building with our core customer base, our fan base, they're spreading the word. And as we started to read the reviews, the #1 word that popped up was love. And I've never in my life seen the word love so many times in reviews. And at that moment, when Sean came in, who's now our chief marketing officer, he said, I've just never seen anybody write that word. So I said, I hadn't either. But that told us that we're onto something from a fan base standpoint. They love the product and love the brand. And so we have to nurture that. But you're absolutely right. We've heard people say, I'm Varidesking. I'm at my Varidesk, and they're standing just on a box, right? So we know that we've made a difference out there in changing the nomenclature of, wow, this is a cool thing to do. Because he used to be the lone soldier in a company. It was almost like whack-a-mole. He'd walk into this office and there's one person standing, and everybody's like, what is he or she doing?
Right.
And then suddenly 2 or 3 people are like, oh, this person's a little more active, a little more pep in their step, and what do you do? And then 2 or 3, and then the ripple starts in the organization. And then the organization starts to see positive transformation, which is the biggest thing, right? When you start to get, not only you feel better personally, but when your culture feels better, then you're getting more done. The CEO's getting excited. I mean, that's when the real transformation happens.
So you're doing a lot of one-to-one, but you're also going in and totally revamping or redesigning office spaces for companies of all sizes, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, we started again with one product, and now it's a little over 50 products in our arsenal today that are on our website. And I've got about 200 new products in the pipeline, all based upon customers giving us feedback saying, do you have monitor arms? Do you have mats? Could you do a full desk for me? And us, as opposed to saying no, we say, why not? Let's try it. And so we started creating more and more products. Now clients are coming into our workspace here, which is really a living, breathing showroom that you're in today. Yeah. And they're saying, we want our space to feel like this. So now we're offering design services. We're building walls. We do lights in the ceiling, all to bring our energy that we've created here at Varidesk and help you create that inside of your organization. So that's really, for us, the future of how we see workspace.
So let's talk for those who are trying to break in B2B with their product or service. Let's help this be a little bit of a case study. What advice or wisdom can you impart to those who've got their own product or service and they're trying to get that meeting with Walmart, or they're trying to get in with the Dallas Mavs and revamp their office? I know you're with Mark Cuban recently, right? Yeah. So what advice would you give to B2B marketers who are trying to get their product or service into where they want their ideal client?
Yeah, I think we look at it like we focus on the fan and the end user to start. So, and the beauty of the internet today is that you can get out there, show your product through video, and ads online and start talking directly to the end users of the product. That gets penetration of your brand inside. We looked at it, it's almost like bring your own device. When people started bringing their phones to work, we created a model where it's almost bring your own desk to work.
So it's a groundswell.
So I think you don't have to start necessarily with the biggest meetings. It's really about getting those initial conversations going. And the power of the internet today, in my mind, has given you an opportunity as a business owner to have that relationship with small, mid-sized companies or end users inside these organizations that have the power to purchase your product. And that creates the groundswell. Ultimately, the tipping point happens and then you get the bigger and bigger opportunities. But we didn't get to do big opportunities like, the Mavs headquarters until literally now, and it's been 5 years since we started the idea, but all those little seedlings that we've planted, and we've worked very hard to build these relationships and a trust and a product that's worthy of it. Now we're at that point where we're able to do that.
Good, underscoring a couple other key lessons that I'm hearing is back to your roots of hard work, kind of grinding it out, paying your dues. It sounds like, you guys didn't take the quick and easy route. You just slow and steady, tortoise wins the race, built your brand, backed it up with a great product. Can we talk about the F word, about failure? As I think people like to maybe bury it, hide it. They don't like to talk about mistakes that they made, but I think it's so critical because really you can't have success without failing. And friend and mentor of mine, Seth Godin, has always said, the people who make the most mistakes, people who fail the most win, because eventually, if they don't fail too far to completely jump out of the race, they're going to figure it out. What mistakes stand out in your mind, or missteps that helped you kind of learn a lesson and get to where you are now?
Yeah. There's thousands of small failures and a lot of big ones. I think that build on it. What I described, I even said this to Mark yesterday, I said growing pains are much more fun than shrinking pains, and I've been through both sides of those. And so when you embrace that and get that you've got to be able to survive those dark moments and really embrace the ones where you get to go for it and grow, but those dark moments of failure actually create the foundation for you to really recognize what success is. And so I go back to the .com days, when we built a business that was, in my mind, amazing culture, unprofitable business model where I spent most of my time out there talking to angel investors. All of my intellectual capacity was raising money because the business model wasn't profitable, similar to how other models were built back in the .com days. Great culture, wrong business, wrong model. I said, as we build out Varidesk, that was a key thing, was we need to be profitable from day one so that we can control our own destiny, build our own business, reinvest that money back into the people and the infrastructure to get this thing right and continue to scale the business. If it's not profitable and I have to spend all of my time raising money on the illusion that it's eventually going to do something, I don't want to do it. Like for me personally, it's not worth it.
And you're chasing your own shadow too, right?
Yeah, and it's just not. At the end of the day, we need to build businesses that are sustainable, profitable. They have to live beyond me. I mean, they have to be a full model that gets it, and the culture and the team can continue to grow and evolve. So that's how I think about everything. I said that if I was 25 years old, I would have absolutely screwed this thing up because I wouldn't have got the right people to help me. I would have spent all my time grinding on the hours of the work versus focusing on the customer, the productivity, tweaking the business model to get it right, really listening to those reviews and that feedback so I get the product just right. So you got to get the price right, the product right, everything's got to work. Once you get all those cylinders, then you can add more fuel to the fire. Then you can add more investment, a little bit more, and so that flywheel effect starts to kick in.
Yeah. Let me just play the other side of the coin for those who might be thinking the same thing that I am right now, which is that quote that always gets attributed to Henry Ford about customer feedback, which is if I asked the people what they wanted at the time, they would have said a faster horse when he was thinking about innovating and optimizing the automobile manufacturing process. But so how do you filter through those comments or that feedback? How do you know which ones are valuable and which ones are throwaway? Because I'm sure a lot of people who've got products or services are looking at the feedback as well. I mean, if you just go to our YouTube comments, you've got a mixed bag of everything from amazing to horrible. How do you filter through that stuff?
Yeah, to me, a lot of it is a personal gut check as I analyze the data, and I think from the team standpoint as well, I think we look at every touch point as one piece of data. So you're looking at aggregating the reviews, But I'm looking at the good, but I'm looking at the bad, and I'm analyzing the bad to go, maybe there is something I'm missing here that I've done wrong.
Is it substantive, or is it just opinion, right?
What we learned early on, because I had never shipped so much product via FedEx drivers and UPS drivers. Well, our first product, the corners were damaging. Okay. So we started getting calls, hey, your corners are damaging. I could have ignored it. Sure. I could have said, just return it, don't worry about it. But we listened and we started tweaking the packaging and then watching what we shipped to Seattle versus New York and started to analyze each. It's like, okay, we got the packaging perfect now. Now we can ship out thousands of orders every day. And I'm not worried about it breaking in from a UPS driver that might be dragging it across the floor. All those little learnings got us better. And in the mat business, we had no idea that we were going to be one of the top sellers of anti-fatigue mats in the world. But these customers kept emailing, hey, do you have an anti-fatigue mat? I'm on concrete, I'm on wood. Why not? So like everybody, and anybody can do this, I went on Amazon and started looking at every mat that was bundled with my product. And I just did a quick competitive analysis. What are the strengths and weaknesses of that product? It smelled funny, a little slimy. And I had to decide at that time, are we going to be a channel of distribution for other people's product, or are we going to control our own destiny? And as we thought about companies like Tesla that are now really reimagining how cars are designed and sold to the end user, we said, we're going to control our own destiny. My product team wanted to create our own version of anti-fatigue mats, and suddenly we're one of the largest sellers of anti-fatigue mats in the world. So why not? But by listening to the demand, it created an opportunity and a spark and let the team go crazy and create the next big thing, which has been awesome.
Well, and that brings me to my next question. You sort of answered it subtly, but so maybe some of you are thinking the same thing I am right now, which is, why not partner with IKEA, for example? You guys have started doing desks and cubes and building office spaces, but why not plug in the Varidesk at a place like IKEA? Talk to me about that independent spirit that you guys have to remain, strong and steadfast on your own path.
Yeah, I think I look at it like we can build a career-long relationship with our fan base. So as you start your own business, as you grow your company, as you get promoted, we have a relationship with you directly now that is a bond. And so our products can continue on the journey. As you want to create an active workspace for your organization, as you want to create a positive culture, like the relationship you've built with us, I can continue to listen and learn with you and grow with you and create products for you. I don't need a middle person in the middle that just takes an unnecessary cut and raises the cost so that it's more friction for you and I to do business. I think the world has changed. I think a lot of companies have come in, and Tesla's a perfect example of disrupting, or Jack Bogle at Vanguard, the way that they disrupted that industry. That's a similar thing that we've said, hey, we can benchmark against these amazing companies in other industries and have that relationship direct. Why not?
Well, and it's about control too. So it makes a ton of sense to me, thinking, maybe logically, someone who's not capitalized, or maybe they're just getting started, it's very tempting to partner. Maybe in some instances it does make sense. I'm thinking about Starbucks does a lot of collaboration with people who make other kinds of food and Starbucks becomes their main point of distribution. They just plug into all the Starbucks in the world, and all of a sudden you have instant distribution. But there's also a lack of control that comes with that, right? And so it sounds like you guys are doing it to maintain the integrity of your process, your product, and be able to give the customer the best experience, the best thing that they need and want, maybe now and even in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. I look at it, as long as the relationship makes sense. If it makes sense for us to plug into another party for a certain vertical or a certain group that doesn't want to, it's not efficient for them to do business with us, it may make sense. But at this point, we figured out that, hey, we can go direct. And as uncomfortable as it's been, because it's not easy to go direct, I just think that it's ultimately the right way, and it's the future of how a lot of business is going to be done. So there's, I think, great organizations out there that you can put products into that have channels of distribution. But if you can ultimately have the relationship with the fan base, control that. If you need to augment it, complement it with some of that in the future, I think that's fine. I look at it like I'm so excited. I've just never had this amazing opportunity to get this feedback from fans and learn with them so we can get better. It's incredible.
I 100%, 150% relate with that as having a YouTube channel. It's the same experience. Right. To go viewer direct and get feedback direct and be able to have full control of our stories and the creative, and to edit it the way we want, long form or short form. I think it's very relatable what you just said. Let's get a little bit personal. Let's talk top to top. And for the C-suite who's maybe watching this, give some advice to maybe people in the C-suite right now who are managing their brands, managing their businesses. What's some advice or wisdom you can give?
Well, I think I always look at everything today now as more of balance. So whether it's my personal life being balanced with my professional life, much better at this phase of my life than I would have done in my 20s. So I think I always look at everything from a balanced perspective. I also now know to really get the people right. You know, I thought that way back in the day, but now I really know you've got to continue to get and surround yourself with amazing people and make sure that those values that you have sit inside of everybody that's around you all throughout the organization.
How do you find those people? I mean, are you just casting nets and then you're sifting through the nets and picking out the good ones? How do you do it?
Yeah, I think, it started off early on when we didn't really, we were incubating inside of another organization, so we were convincing people to at least explore this opportunity. And just say, well, a few from Jemmy absolutely jumped over and said, I want to be a part of the Varidesk journey because it became such a different journey for the organization. And then other people, people that we loved said, hey, I'm not interested, but I know somebody that might be, and it started that network. And it's part of a transition process and me having a gut check. And the beauty of when it's small is I got to interview everybody. Yeah. Today I don't have that luxury anymore. So for me, I just have a sense of the people I want to work with and the people that I can work with and trust and can grow with me.
And what are some of those qualities? What's going to make a successful employee here?
Well, I think, I boil it down again to those three things, from my mother. And I look for that no ego from a teamwork standpoint that's really got to fit. I always describe it as we're all rowing in the boat, and if the oar's in the water, either I'm going to have to toss that person out, or hopefully the culture itself weans them out if they don't genuinely want to be on this amazing journey. I described it early on when we were having some website issues. There was about 20 people. I think we had 20 people at the time, and now we're at 200. So this is probably only 3 years ago. And we just website, growing pains. We had QuickBooks was our first accounting system plugged into a 3D cart website, like literally a squirrel trying to get these orders out, and FedEx labels and printing and nuts. And as we're going through this, I just got everybody in the room and I said, hey, this is not a sprint. This is not a marathon. This to me is like an Ironman. And we have hit the water. And if it is too cold, too choppy, like you feel like you can't, we're just getting started. Let me find you another job. Let me go, I can network with another CEO or another executive around here. Let me get you out, just tap out. It's fine, because this is how it's gonna be for a while. And it's still like that, but it's growing pains. And for people that have not experienced shrinking pains, growing pains, as awful as they can be, are the best pains to have. So I met with that group, nobody tapped out. It was just like a moment to let it out. And you have to have those moments inside an organization, but that looked around the table and I realized we got it.
Do you have a morning regime? Like, are you one of these very structured guys, or is it, you play it loose?
It's a little bit of a morning routine. I try to do the Headspace app, if I can either do it in the morning. I do like Andy's Headspace app. That's sort of my mental time there and get a little bit of a workout in. And then in here, I try to have breakfast with my kids in the morning. That seems to be my personal, just a few minutes to connect with them when they're talking to me and having all those good times, but we go through that process. And then here I typically block out a full hour just to make sure that I've got all of, if there is something I need to put out or really plan out and make sure that I've got the priorities done for my day. And then I do leave enough time in there, really probably 2-3 hour blocks, just to have nonstop meetings with my staff to make sure that there's no roadblocks, to make sure that they're able to stay focused on whatever they've got to get done. And then I leave a few hours midday and at the end of the day just to block out, to knock out projects, really recruiting new talent, thinking about the strategy, working on new products that we've got going on, or just infrastructure, thinking things that I need some time just to think through. So I try to block it out in different ways.
Gotcha. How about any recommended reading? Like, how do you stay innovative? How do you stay creative? How do you keep your mind sharp? Are you an avid reader? Do you have any books that you would recommend for either, younger people with less experience or mid or more experienced level to?
I love to read business books. That's sort of my relaxation hobby. My go-to has been Good to Great. Is probably foundationally the one that I always look to for just core. Getting that right and thinking that way about people and getting really the pivot from thinking about good, but there's an opportunity to be great by continuing to dial it in. And I know I never achieve it, but I always push for it. And so I think mentally getting into that right mindset. Anything about the story, and I like to read the real story where you try to get, whether it's the Home Depot founder story, but really understand what didn't work and what did work, because those are the things that I struggle with. And I like to hear about so that I continue to lead my team on the right journey and just know that it's going to be okay.